Welcome to the Lean Startup by Eric Ries. In this transformative audiobook, you will learn the revolutionary approach to launching and growing successful businesses in today's fast-paced world. Eric Ries presents practical insights and methodologies that emphasize rapid experimentation, validated learning, and iterative product development. This audiobook is an essential guide for entrepreneurs, innovators, and business leaders who seek to create sustainable, scalable enterprises. Join us on this journey to discover how to build and adapt your startup to achieve lasting success. Chapter 1. Start. In the modern world of business, traditional approaches to launching products are no longer effective. Instead of spending months or even years perfecting a product before launching it to the market, the Lean Startup method proposes a different approach. Learn as quickly as possible. The vision of the Lean Startup method. The Lean Startup method is based on the idea that entrepreneurs should focus on finding a viable business model through experimentation and rapid iteration. This means launching minimum viable products (MVPs) as soon as possible to get real customer feedback and adjust the product accordingly. The build, measure, learn cycle. At the core of the Lean Startup method is the build, measure, learn cycle. This cycle involves building an MVP, measuring how customers respond to it, and learning from that response to iterate and improve the product. This cycle is repeated continuously until a viable business model is found. Build. The build phase involves creating the MVP, based on initial hypotheses about the product and market. These hypotheses can be related to product features, customer needs, or distribution methods. Measure. Once the MVP is launched, it's crucial to measure how customers interact with it. This is where actionable metrics come into play, allowing for an objective evaluation of whether the initial hypotheses are correct. Learn. With the collected data, the next step is to learn from it. This can involve validating the original hypotheses or realizing that a change of direction pivot is necessary. Validated learning is a continuous process of refinement and improvement based on real customer behavior. Example of the Lean Startup method in action. A classic example of the Lean Startup method is the story of Dropbox. Instead of building a complete version of their product, the founders of Dropbox created a simple video demonstrating how their product would work. This video allowed them to gain valuable feedback from potential users without having to build the entire product. Based on this feedback, they were able to iterate and improve their offering before making significant investments in full product development. The importance of actionable metrics. In the Lean Startup method, not all metrics are created equal. Actionable metrics are those that can guide specific decisions and actions. These metrics are crucial for understanding whether the business model is working and what changes are necessary. Eric Ries emphasizes that metrics must be actionable. They must provide clear information that allows for concrete decisions. Accessible. They should be understandable to all team members, not just data experts. Auditable. They must be based on real data that can be verified and validated. Learning from failure. Failure is an inevitable part of the Lean Startup process. However, each failure provides an opportunity to learn and improve. It's crucial for entrepreneurs to embrace failure as part of the learning process and to continue iterating on their product and business model. The concept of pivoting is fundamental in this context. Pivoting means making a structural change to the product or business model based on what has been learned. A pivot can involve changing the target customer segment, modifying product features, or exploring new distribution channels. Cases of success in the Lean Startup method. In addition to Dropbox, many other ventures have used the Lean Startup method to achieve success. For example, Zappos, the online shoe store, began by testing their business idea without having their own inventory. Instead, they purchased shoes from local stores only after receiving an order on their website. This approach allowed them to validate their business model before investing heavily in inventory. Conclusion of the chapter. The Lean Startup method offers an innovative and effective approach to launching products in the modern world. By focusing on rapid experimentation and continuous learning, entrepreneurs can find viable and successful business models more efficiently and effectively. Adopting the build, measure, learn cycle allows entrepreneurs to minimize risk and maximize the impact of their efforts. Chapter 2. Define. What is a startup? A startup is not just a small version of a big company. Eric Ries defines a startup as a human institution designed to create a new product or service under conditions of extreme uncertainty. The key difference between a startup and a large company is uncertainty. Large companies operate with established business models and clear objectives, while startups must discover what works through experimentation. The importance of vision. A clear vision is fundamental for any startup. The vision provides a direction and guides strategic decisions. However, a vision alone is not enough. A strategy is also needed to realize that vision. The strategy includes the business model, product plan, development roadmap, and market tactics. Vision and strategy together form the foundation upon which the startup is built. Strategy and experimentation. In the uncertain environment of a startup, the strategy must be flexible and adaptive. This means that startups must be willing to experiment and pivot as necessary. A pivot is a structural change designed to test a new hypothesis about the product, strategy, or growth engine. This process of continuous experimentation and pivoting is essential to finding a viable business model. The Lean Startup Methodology. The Lean Startup Methodology is built on 5 key principles. Entrepreneurs are everywhere. You don't need to work in a garage to be part of a startup. Anyone in any company can adopt Lean Startup principles to drive innovation. Entrepreneurship is management. A startup is an institution, not just a product, and requires a specific kind of management that is suitable for its context of extreme uncertainty. Validated learning. Startups exist to learn how to build a sustainable business. This learning can be scientifically validated through experiments that test hypotheses. Build, measure, learn. The fundamental activity of a startup is to turn ideas into products, measure how customers respond, and then learn whether to pivot or persevere. All successful startup processes should be geared to accelerate this feedback loop. Innovation accounting. To improve entrepreneurial outcomes and hold innovators accountable, we need to focus on the right metrics. This includes setting milestones, prioritizing work, and measuring progress objectively. Example of definition and strategy. A clear example of applying these principles is the story of Invu, a social networking startup co-founded by Eric Ries. Instead of spending years developing a perfect platform, Invu launched an MVP quickly to test their hypothesis that users would pay for 3D avatars. Through the build, measure, learn cycle, Invu was able to iterate rapidly on their product, adjusting their strategy based on real user feedback. The build, measure, learn cycle in detail. Build. The build phase is where the MVP is created. The MVP should be the simplest version of the product that allows you to start the learning process as quickly as possible. The goal is to test hypotheses with the least amount of effort and resources. This phase involves making decisions about what features to include and what to leave out, focusing on what is necessary to test the core assumptions. Measure. Once the MVP is launched, it is crucial to measure how customers interact with it. This phase involves collecting data on user behavior and outcomes. The data collected must be actionable, meaning it can guide specific decisions about how to improve the product. This requires setting up proper metrics and analytics to capture relevant information. Learn. With data in hand, the next step is to learn from it. This phase involves analyzing the data to determine whether the initial hypotheses were correct. If the data supports the hypotheses, the team can continue on their current path. If not, it may be time to pivot. The learning phase is about making informed decisions based on empirical evidence, not intuition or guesswork. Actionable metrics versus vanity metrics. In the Lean Startup Methodology, it is important to distinguish between actionable metrics and vanity metrics. Vanity metrics, such as the total number of website visitors, may look impressive, but do not necessarily reflect real progress. Actionable metrics, on the other hand, provide clear and specific insights that can guide strategic decisions. Validated learning through experiments. Validated learning is a process of demonstrating empirically that a team has discovered valuable truths about a startup's present and future business prospects. It involves conducting experiments to test hypotheses and using the results to inform decisions. Each experiment is an opportunity to learn and refine the business model. Example of validated learning. Another example of validated learning is the approach taken by Airbnb. Before building a complete platform, the founders tested their idea by renting out their own apartment. This simple experiment provided valuable insights into customer behavior and validated the core hypothesis that people would be willing to rent rooms in private homes. Strategic planning for startups. Strategic planning in startups involves setting long-term goals and determining the best way to achieve them. This process should be flexible, allowing for adjustments based on new information and changing conditions. Strategic planning should include setting milestones, defining key metrics, and creating a roadmap for development. The role of innovation accounting. Innovation accounting is a critical component of the lean startup methodology. It involves creating a framework for measuring progress and holding the team accountable. This includes defining key performance indicators (KPIs), setting milestones, and regularly reviewing progress against these metrics. Innovation accounting helps ensure that the startup is making measurable progress toward its goals. The importance of a learning culture. For a startup to be successful, it needs to foster a culture of learning. This means encouraging experimentation, embracing failure as a learning opportunity, and continuously seeking feedback from customers. A learning culture promotes agility and adaptability, which are essential for navigating the uncertainties of the startup environment. Chapter 3. Learn. The importance of validated learning. Validated learning is the process of demonstrating empirically that a team has discovered valuable truths about a startup's present and future business prospects. It's a way to rigorously test every element of the business plan, allowing entrepreneurs to adjust their strategy based on evidence rather than assumptions. Validated learning helps to minimize the risk and uncertainty inherent in launching a new product. Hypotheses and experimentation. Every startup begins with a series of assumptions that need to be turned into clear hypotheses and tested through experiments. These hypotheses cover everything from specific product features to market strategies. The goal is to discover as quickly as possible which parts of the business model are valid and which need to be revised. Minimum viable product (MVP). A key concept in validated learning is the minimum viable product (MVP). The MVP is the simplest version of the product that allows a startup to begin the learning process as quickly as possible. The MVP is not intended to be perfect, but should be functional enough to test a basic hypothesis and gather valuable customer feedback. Example of an MVP in action. A notable example of using an MVP is Zappos, the online shoe store. Founder Nick Swinmurn wanted to test the hypothesis that people would buy shoes online. Instead of building a complex website, he started by taking pictures of shoes in local stores and posting them online. Only after receiving orders would he buy the shoes from the stores and ship them to customers. This approach allowed Zappos to validate their business model without a significant upfront investment. Actionable versus vanity metrics. It is crucial to distinguish between actionable metrics and vanity metrics. Vanity metrics, like the total number of website visitors, might look impressive, but do not necessarily reflect real progress towards the business goals. Actionable metrics provide clear insights that can guide specific decisions and actions, such as the conversion rate from visitor to paying customer. Continuous feedback loop. The build, measure, learn cycle is a continuous feedback loop. After launching an MVP, measuring the response, and learning from the results, the startup should use that learning to build the next MVP or make adjustments to the current product. This cycle repeats over and over, allowing for constant improvement and adaptation. Learning from failures. Validated learning also involves learning from failures. Each failure is an opportunity to gain a deeper understanding of the market and refine the strategy. Rather than viewing failures as setbacks, entrepreneurs should see them as necessary steps in the path to success. Example of iteration and pivoting. Invu, the social networking startup mentioned earlier, is an example of successful iteration and pivoting. Initially, Invu focused on a 3D avatar-based instant messaging service. However, user feedback revealed that the messaging feature was not as valuable as the avatars themselves. The company pivoted to focus more on avatar customization, leading to greater user engagement and success. The role of experiments in learning. Experiments are at the heart of validated learning. These experiments must be designed to test specific hypotheses and provide actionable data. By systematically testing and validating each element of the business model, startups can reduce uncertainty and make more informed decisions. Building a culture of learning. For validated learning to be effective, startups need to build a culture that values learning and experimentation. This means encouraging team members to test new ideas, accept failure as part of the process, and continuously seek feedback from customers. A learning culture fosters innovation and agility, enabling startups to adapt and thrive in a rapidly changing environment. The scientific method applied to startups. The scientific method involves forming a hypothesis, conducting an experiment, and analyzing the results to draw conclusions. This approach can be applied to startups by treating the business model as a series of hypotheses to be tested. By using the scientific method, startups can make data-driven decisions and avoid the pitfalls of relying on intuition or assumptions. Key metrics for learning. To measure progress effectively, startups should focus on key metrics that reflect true learning and growth. These metrics might include customer acquisition costs, lifetime value of customers, and conversion rates. By tracking these metrics over time, startups can identify trends and make strategic adjustments. Chapter 4: Experiment. The importance of experiments. In the context of a startup, experiments are crucial for validating hypotheses about the product and the market. A well-designed experiment can provide valuable insights into customer needs and the viability of the business model. Experiments should be quick and cost-effective, allowing the startup to learn and adapt without wasting significant resources. Designing experiments. Designing experiments in a startup involves formulating clear and specific hypotheses and then testing them in a structured manner. An effective hypothesis should be testable and relevant to the startup's goals. For example, a hypothesis might be, users will be willing to pay $10 per month for this service. Identifying hypotheses. The first step is to identify the key assumptions that need to be validated. These can relate to the product's value proposition, customer behavior, or marketing strategies. Designing the experiment. Designing an experiment involves defining how the hypothesis will be tested. This can include creating an MVP, conducting A/B tests, or gathering direct customer feedback. Collecting data. Once the experiment is underway, it is crucial to collect accurate and relevant data. This involves monitoring how users interact with the MVP and recording any behaviors that confirm or refute the hypothesis. Analyzing results. After collecting the data, the next step is to analyze it to determine whether it supports or refutes the hypothesis. This analysis should be rigorous and objective, avoiding the temptation to interpret data in a way that only confirms pre-existing expectations. Example of a successful experiment. A notable example of a successful experiment is Airbnb. Before becoming the global platform it is today, the founders of Airbnb tested their idea by creating a simple website and renting out their own apartment. This allowed them to validate the demand for their service without a significant upfront investment, providing the proof they needed to pursue further development. Tools and techniques for experimentation. There are various tools and techniques that startups can use to conduct effective experiments. A/B testing. This technique involves comparing two versions of a product or feature to see which performs better. It is an effective way to test incremental changes in product design or marketing strategies. User interviews. Speaking directly with users can provide valuable qualitative insights. Interviews can reveal needs and desires that are not apparent from quantitative data alone. Prototyping and mock-ups. Creating prototypes and mock-ups can help visualize how the final product will work. These can be used for usability tests and to gather early feedback from users. Validating hypotheses with data. Validating hypotheses should be based on concrete data, not assumptions. This requires a scientific mindset where decisions are made based on empirical evidence. Entrepreneurs must be willing to accept results that do not always confirm their expectations and pivot as necessary. Learning from failed experiments. Not all experiments will be successful, and that's okay. Failed experiments provide opportunities to learn and adjust the strategy. The important thing is to document what was learned from each experiment and use that information to improve future efforts. Example of iteration and pivot. An example of iteration and pivot is Invu, the social networking startup. Initially, Invu focused on a 3D avatar-based instant messaging service. However, user feedback revealed that the messaging feature was not as valuable as the avatars themselves. The company pivoted to focus more on avatar customization, leading to greater user engagement and success. The role of continuous feedback. The continuous feedback loop is essential for experimentation. After launching an MVP, measuring the response, and learning from the results, the startup should use that learning to build the next MVP or make adjustments to the current product. This cycle repeats over and over, allowing for constant improvement and adaptation. Building a culture of experimentation. For experimentation to be effective, startups need to build a culture that values learning and testing new ideas. This means encouraging team members to experiment, accept failure as part of the process, and continuously seek feedback from customers. A culture of experimentation fosters innovation and agility, enabling startups to adapt and thrive in a rapidly changing environment. Strategic planning for experiments. Strategic planning in experiments involves setting long-term goals and determining the best way to achieve them. This process should be flexible, allowing for adjustments based on new information and changing conditions. Strategic planning should include setting milestones, defining key metrics, and creating a roadmap for development. Chapter 5: Leap. The concept of pivoting. Pivoting is a fundamental element in the lean startup methodology. It means making a structural change to test a new hypothesis about the product, strategy, or growth engine. Pivots can involve changes in the target customer segment, product features, or the way the product is delivered to the market. Types of pivots. Eric Ries identifies several types of pivots that a startup can undertake. Zoom-in pivot. What was previously considered a single feature of a product becomes the whole product. This type of pivot occurs when it is discovered that a single feature has more value to customers than the entire product. Zoom-out pivot. What was previously the whole product becomes a single feature of a much larger product. This happens when customers demand a more comprehensive solution than what was initially offered. Customer segment pivot. The startup keeps the product but changes the segment of customers it targets. This pivot is made when it is found that the product solves a significant problem for a different group of customers than initially anticipated. Customer need pivot. The product solves a real problem, but not the problem the founders originally thought. This pivot involves adjusting the value proposition to better align with the discovered needs of customers. Platform pivot, a change from an application to a platform or vice versa. This can occur when the underlying infrastructure of the product proves to have more value as a platform for other developers. Example of a successful pivot. A notable example of a successful pivot is Instagram. Initially launched as a check-in app called Bourbon, the founders noticed that users were mainly interested in the photo sharing feature. They decided to pivot and relaunch the app focusing solely on photo sharing, leading to the global success of Instagram. Deciding when to pivot or persevere. One of the most challenging decisions entrepreneurs face is knowing when to pivot and when to persevere. Eric Ries suggests that this decision should be based on validated learning and actionable metrics. If experiments consistently show that the original hypotheses are incorrect, it may be time to pivot. Metrics and signals for pivoting. To determine when to pivot, startups should pay attention to metrics that indicate whether they are making progress toward their goals. Some signals that it might be time to pivot include stagnant growth. If the user base or sales are not growing as expected, it might be a sign that a change in direction is needed. Consistent customer feedback. If customers continually suggest changes or improvements that are not aligned with the current vision of the product, it may be time to reconsider the strategy. Lack of engagement. If users are not interacting with the product as intended, it is a clear sign that something needs to change. Stories of pivots. Pivot stories are common in the startup world. For instance, Twitter began as a podcasting platform called Audio. When Apple launched iTunes, Audio realized they couldn't compete and pivoted to become the microblogging platform we know today. The process of making the leap. To make an informed decision about whether to pivot or persevere, startups should follow a systematic process. Gather and analyze data. Use actionable metrics and customer feedback to assess the current state of the product and market. Evaluate hypotheses. Compare the data with initial hypotheses to see if they are being validated. Make a decision. Based on the data and analysis, decide whether to pivot or persevere. Tools for decision making. Several tools can assist in the decision-making process, such as cohort analysis, A/B testing, and customer case studies. These tools provide concrete data that can guide the startup's strategy. Chapter 6. Test. The importance of testing. Testing assumptions and hypotheses is a critical step in the lean startup methodology. By conducting tests, startups can validate their business models, product features, and market strategies. Testing helps reduce uncertainty and ensures that resources are invested in ideas that have been proven to work through empirical evidence. The scientific approach to testing. Eric Ries advocates for a scientific approach to testing in startups. This involves forming clear hypotheses, designing experiments to test these hypotheses, and analyzing the results objectively. The goal is to learn quickly and adjust strategies based on validated learning. Types of tests in startups. A/B testing. This technique compares two versions of a product or feature to see which performs better. A/B testing is particularly useful for optimizing user interfaces, marketing messages, and product features. By testing different variations with real users, startups can determine which version yields better results. Usability testing. In usability testing, startups observe how real users interact with their products. This helps identify any usability issues that might not be evident through quantitative data alone. Usability testing ensures that the product is user-friendly and meets the needs of its target audience. Market testing. Market testing involves launching the product or feature in a limited market to gauge customer response. This allows startups to validate demand, understand customer behavior, and refine their marketing strategy strategies before a full-scale launch. Building an MVP. The minimum viable product (MVP) is a crucial tool in the testing phase. An MVP is the simplest version of the product that allows a startup to begin the learning process as quickly as possible. It should include only the core features necessary to test the fundamental assumptions about the product and its market. Example of an MVP in action. Dropbox is a well-known example of an MVP. Instead of building a complete product, the founders created a simple video demonstrating how Dropbox would work. This video attracted thousands of potential users and validated the demand for a cloud storage solution, allowing Dropbox to secure funding and build the full product with confidence. Actionable metrics and validated learning. Actionable metrics are essential for the learning process. Unlike vanity metrics, which may look impressive but offer little insight, actionable metrics provide clear and specific information that can guide decisions. Validated learning is achieved when these metrics show that the startup's hypotheses are correct or need adjustment. Analyzing results and making decisions. After collecting data from tests, the next step is to analyze the results objectively. This involves comparing the outcomes against the original hypotheses to determine whether they are validated. Based on this analysis, startups can decide whether to pivot or persevere. This decision-making process should be driven by data and empirical evidence. The role of continuous testing. Continuous testing is essential for ongoing improvement. Even after the initial hypotheses are validated, startups should continue testing new ideas and features. This ensures that the product evolves in line with customer needs and market trends, maintaining its relevance and competitiveness. Learning from failed tests. Not all tests will be successful, and that's an important part of the learning process. Failed tests provide valuable insights into what doesn't work, allowing startups to refine their hypotheses and strategies. Embracing failure as a learning opportunity fosters a culture of innovation and resilience. Strategic planning for testing. Strategic planning for testing involves setting clear goals, defining key metrics, and establishing a timeline for experiments. This planning helps ensure that tests are conducted systematically and that the results are used effectively to guide decision-making. Tools and techniques for effective testing. Several tools and techniques can enhance the testing process. Customer surveys. Collecting direct feedback from customers can provide qualitative insights that complement quantitative data. Heat maps. These visual tools show how users interact with a web page, highlighting areas of interest and potential issues. Analytics platforms. Tools like Google Analytics help track user behavior and measure the effectiveness of different tests. Building a culture of testing. For testing to be effective, startups need to build a culture that values experimentation and data-driven decision-making. This means encouraging team members to propose and test new ideas and to learn from the results, regardless of whether they confirm or refute the initial hypotheses. Chapter 7. Measure. The importance of proper measurement. In a startup, proper measurement is crucial for understanding progress and making informed decisions. Eric Ries emphasizes that traditional metrics used by established companies often do not apply to startups. Instead, startups should use a framework called innovation accounting, which focuses on validated learning and actionable metrics. Innovation accounting. Innovation accounting is a system designed to measure progress in a startup. Unlike traditional accounting, which focuses on revenue and profit, innovation accounting centers on creating value through learning. This approach allows startups to assess their real progress toward building a sustainable business. Actionable metrics. Actionable metrics are those that can guide specific decisions and actions. These metrics are critical for innovation accounting and must meet 3 criteria. Actionable. They must provide clear information that allows for concrete decisions. For example, a metric that shows the conversion rate from free trial to paying customer is actionable because it can directly inform marketing strategies and product improvements. Accessible. The metrics should be understandable to all team members, not just data experts. This ensures that everyone can use the information to make informed decisions. Auditable. The data underlying the metrics must be real, verifiable, and trustworthy. This means that the metrics should be based on actual user behavior and not assumptions. Example of actionable metrics. An example of an actionable metric is the customer acquisition cost, CAC. This metric measures how much it costs to acquire a new customer and can guide decisions on marketing spending. If the CAC is higher than the customer lifetime value, LTV, it indicates that the current marketing strategy is not sustainable and needs adjustment. The build, measure, learn cycle. The build, measure, learn cycle is fundamental to the lean startup methodology. After building a minimum viable product (MVP), The next step is to measure how customers respond to it. This measurement must be precise and focused on actionable metrics that validate or refute the initial hypotheses. Establishing baselines. Before progress can be measured, it is essential to establish baselines. These are the initial conditions of the product and market that serve as reference points for future comparisons. By having a clear baseline, startups can evaluate whether changes are actually improving the product and moving it closer to the desired goals. Analyzing results and making decisions. Analyzing measurement results should be done rigorously and objectively. This involves comparing the outcomes against the original hypotheses to determine whether they are validated. Based on this analysis, startups can decide whether to pivot or persevere. This decision-making process should be driven by data and empirical evidence, not intuition or guesswork. Example of analysis and pivot. Wealthfront, a startup in the investment management space, initially launched an MVP that did not attract the expected number of users. By analyzing actionable metrics, they discovered that potential users were more interested in automated financial planning than in traditional investment management. Wealthfront pivoted to focus on automation, which significantly increased user engagement and growth. Continuous measurement. Measurement is not a one-time activity, but a continuous process. Startups should keep measuring and analyzing data to ensure that they are making progress and adapting to new information. This continuous measurement helps startups stay aligned with their goals and make necessary adjustments in real time. Key metrics for startups. Some key metrics that startups should focus on include customer acquisition cost (CAC), the cost associated with acquiring a new customer; lifetime value (LTV), the total revenue expected from a customer over their lifetime; conversion rate, the percentage of users who take a desired action, such as signing up for a service or making a purchase; retention rate, the percentage of customers who continue using the product over a specific period; churn rate, the percentage of customers who stop using the product over a specific period; engagement metrics. These include metrics like daily active users (DAU) and monthly active users (MAU), which indicate how engaged users are with the product. Innovation accounting tools. Several tools can assist with innovation accounting and measurement. Analytics platforms. Tools like Google Analytics and Mixpanel help track user behavior and measure the effectiveness of different tests. A/B testing tools. Platforms like Optimizely allow startups to run A/B tests and compare different versions of their product or marketing campaigns. Customer feedback tools. Tools like SurveyMonkey and Typeform can be used to gather qualitative feedback from users. Building a culture of measurement. For measurement to be effective, startups need to build a culture that values data-driven decision-making. This means encouraging team members to rely on data rather than intuition, and to continuously seek and analyze feedback from customers. A culture of measurement fosters transparency, accountability, and continuous improvement. Chapter 8. Pivot or persevere. The critical decision. One of the biggest challenges that startups face is deciding when to pivot and when to persevere. Pivoting involves making a structural change to test a new hypothesis about the product, strategy, or growth engine. Persevering means continuing in the same direction, working to improve the current product and strategy. Making the right decision can determine the success or failure of a startup. Signs it's time to pivot. Eric Ries suggests several signals that may indicate it is time to pivot. Stagnant growth. If the user base or sales are not growing as expected, it may be a sign that a change in direction is needed. Consistent customer feedback. If customers continually suggest changes or improvements that do not align with the current vision of the product, it may be time to reconsider the strategy. Lack of engagement. If users are not interacting with the product as intended, it is a clear sign that something needs to change. Types of pivots. There are several types of pivots that a startup can make. Zoom in pivot. What was previously considered a single feature of a product becomes the whole product. This type of pivot occurs when it is discovered that a single feature has more value to customers than the entire product. Zoom out pivot. What was previously the whole product becomes a single feature of a much larger product. This happens when customers demand a more comprehensive solution than what was initially offered. Customer segment pivot. The startup keeps the product but changes the segment of customers it targets. This pivot is made when it is found that the product solves a significant problem for a different group of customers than initially anticipated. Customer need pivot. The product solves a real problem, but not the problem the founders originally thought. This pivot involves adjusting the value proposition to better align with the discovered needs of customers. Platform pivot, a change from an application to a platform or vice versa. This can occur when the underlying infrastructure of the product proves to have more value as a platform for other developers. Business architecture pivot, switching between a high-margin, low-volume business model and a low-margin, high-volume business model. This pivot can be necessary when the current business architecture does not support sustainable growth. Value capture pivot, changing the way the company captures value. For example, switching from a freemium model to a subscription model to improve revenue. Engine of growth pivot, changing the growth strategy. For instance, moving from a viral growth strategy to a paid growth strategy to accelerate user acquisition. Channel pivot, changing the way a product is delivered to customers. This could involve moving from direct sales to an online sales model or vice versa. Technology pivot, using a different technology to achieve the same solution. This pivot can be necessary when a new technology emerges that offers better performance, lower cost, or other advantages. Example of a successful pivot. Instagram provides a classic example of a successful pivot. Initially launched as a check-in app called Bourbon, the founders noticed that users were mainly interested in the photo sharing feature. They decided to pivot and relaunch the app focusing solely on photo sharing, leading to the global success of Instagram. Persevering with continuous improvement. If the data indicates that the product is on the right path but still needs improvement, the correct decision might be to persevere. This involves continuing to iterate on the product, using customer feedback and actionable metrics to make incremental improvements that enhance the value proposition. The decision-making process. To make an informed decision about whether to pivot or persevere, startups should follow a systematic process. Gather and analyze data. Use actionable metrics and customer feedback to assess the current state of the product and market. Evaluate hypotheses. Compare the data with the initial hypotheses to see if they are being validated. Make a decision. Based on the data and analysis, decide whether to pivot or persevere. This decision should be data-driven and supported by empirical evidence. Tools for decision-making. Several tools can assist in the decision-making process, such as cohort analysis, A/B testing, and customer case studies. These tools provide concrete data that can guide the startup's strategy. Example of analysis and pivot. Twitter is an example of a company that successfully pivoted. Originally conceived as a podcasting platform called Audio, the founders pivoted to create the microblogging platform we know today. After realizing that they could not compete with iTunes, this pivot allowed Twitter to find its niche and grow rapidly, building a culture of adaptability. For a startup to be successful, it needs to foster a culture that values adaptability. This means encouraging team members to experiment, learn from failures, and be willing to pivot when necessary. A culture of adaptability promotes agility and resilience, enabling startups to navigate uncertainty and capitalize on new opportunities. The role of leadership in pivoting. Leadership plays a crucial role in the pivoting process. Leaders must be willing to make tough decisions based on data and evidence, even when it means abandoning the original vision. Effective leadership involves communicating the reasons for the pivot to the team, maintaining morale, and ensuring that everyone is aligned with the new direction. Metrics and signals for pivoting. To determine when to pivot, startups should pay attention to metrics that indicate whether they are making progress toward their goals. Some signals that it might be time to pivot include stagnant growth. If the user base or sales are not growing as expected, it might be a sign that a change in direction is needed. Consistent customer feedback. If customers continually suggest changes or improvements that are not aligned with the current vision of the product, it may be time to reconsider the strategy. Lack of engagement. If users are not interacting with the product as intended, it is a clear sign that something needs to change. Conclusion. The decision to pivot or persevere is one of the most critical decisions a startup will face. By using a systematic process and relying on actionable metrics and validated learning, startups can make informed decisions that increase their chances of success. Whether the decision is to pivot or persevere, the key is to remain adaptable and committed to learning from the journey. Chapter 9. Small batches. The efficiency of small batches. One of the fundamental principles of the lean startup methodology is the use of small batches. Working with small batches allows startups to identify quality issues and make adjustments quickly. This approach is more efficient than producing in large batches, as it reduces waste and accelerates the feedback loop. Benefits of small batches. Working in small batches offers several key benefits. Early detection of problems. With small batches, quality issues can be identified and corrected much earlier, preventing significant waste of resources. Continuous improvement. Small batches facilitate rapid and continuous iteration, enabling consistent product improvement. Flexibility. They provide the flexibility needed to pivot and make strategic adjustments, as startups are not committed to large-scale production. Example of small batches in action. The small batch approach is a common practice in lean manufacturing and has been successfully adopted by many startups. A notable example is Toyota, which uses the just-in-time (JIT) system to minimize inventory and maximize efficiency. This approach has allowed Toyota to stay agile and respond quickly to market demands. Application and software development. In software development, small batches can be implemented through agile methodologies, such as Scrum and Kanban. These methods break work into short, manageable sprints, allowing development teams to deliver functional product increments regularly. This not only improves software quality, but also ensures that customer feedback is incorporated continuously. Reducing waste. Working in small batches also helps reduce waste in the development process. By producing only what is needed in each cycle, startups can avoid overproduction and minimize costs associated with storing and handling unnecessary inventory. Example of reducing waste. Dropbox is an excellent example of reducing waste through small batches. The company started with a minimum viable product (MVP), instead of building a complete platform from the beginning. This allowed them to validate their hypothesis and adjust their offering, without incurring significant development and maintenance costs for features users did not need. Implementing small batches. To implement small batches effectively, startups should define manageable units of work, break down tasks into small, specific tasks that can be completed quickly, establish rapid feedback loops, collect customer feedback in each iteration to make immediate adjustments, adopt agile methodologies, use frameworks like Scrum or Kanban to manage workflow and ensure regular deliveries. The role of continuous integration and deployment. Continuous integration and deployment (CI/CD) are practices that support working in small batches. CI/CD involves integrating code changes frequently and deploying them to production environments automatically. This practice ensures that new features and bug fixes are delivered quickly and reliably, enhancing the product's overall quality and user experience. Example of CI/CD in practice. Companies like Amazon and Netflix have successfully implemented CI/CD practices to maintain their competitive edge. These companies deploy code changes many times a day, allowing them to innovate rapidly and respond to customer needs more effectively. Building a culture of small batches. For small batches to be effective, startups need to build a culture that values rapid iteration and continuous improvement. This means encouraging team members to break down tasks, seek feedback frequently, and embrace a mindset of ongoing learning and adaptation. The scientific approach to small batches. The scientific approach involves forming hypotheses, conducting experiments in small batches, and analyzing the results to draw conclusions. By applying this method, startups can make data-driven decisions and avoid the pitfalls of relying on intuition or assumptions. Strategic planning for small batches. Strategic planning for small batches involves setting long-term goals and determining the best way to achieve them. This process should be flexible, allowing for adjustments based on new information and changing conditions. Strategic planning should include setting milestones, defining key metrics, and creating a roadmap for development. The role of leadership in small batches. Leadership plays a crucial role in implementing small batches. Leaders must create an environment that supports rapid iteration and continuous improvement. This involves providing the necessary resources, fostering a culture of experimentation, and ensuring that the team is aligned with the startup's vision and goals. Measuring success with small batches. To ensure that small batches are effective, startups should measure their success using key metrics such as cycle time, defect rates, and customer satisfaction. These metrics provide valuable insights into the efficiency and effectiveness of the development process and help identify areas for improvement. Chapter 10: Sustainable Growth. Defining sustainable growth. Sustainable growth in a startup is growth that is driven by a repeatable, scalable engine. Eric Ries defines sustainable growth as the kind of growth that is driven by the actions of past customers. These engines of growth include word of mouth as a side effect of product usage, through funded advertising, and through repeatable sales processes. Engines of growth. Ries identifies 3 primary engines of sustainable growth. Sticky engine of growth. This engine is based on customer retention. A product with a high retention rate will naturally grow, as long as new customers are added at a faster rate than old customers churn. Key metrics for this engine include the retention rate and the churn rate. Viral engine of growth. This engine relies on the network effect, where each new customer brings in more new customers. The viral coefficient measures how many additional customers each customer brings in. For viral growth, the product must be inherently shareable, and the viral loop should be quick. Paid engine of growth. This engine involves acquiring new customers through paid marketing efforts. The key to this engine is ensuring that the cost of acquiring a customer, CAC, is less than the customer lifetime value, LTV. This ensures that the business can sustainably spend on marketing. Example of engines of growth. A classic example of the sticky engine of growth is Facebook. Facebook has focused on keeping users engaged and returning to the platform daily, leading to high retention and natural growth. Dropbox, on the other hand, exemplifies the viral engine of growth. Dropbox offered additional storage space as an incentive for users to refer friends, which rapidly increased their user base. Strategies for driving sustainable growth. Startups need to identify which engine of growth is most relevant for their product and focus on optimizing it. Some strategies include improving customer retention, implementing product improvements and providing excellent customer service to increase satisfaction and loyalty, encouraging viral growth, creating referral programs and making it easy for users to share the product with others. Optimizing paid marketing. Using data analytics to identify the most effective marketing channels and refine advertising campaigns. Measuring the success of growth strategies. To ensure that a startup is growing sustainably, it is crucial to measure and analyze key metrics continuously. These metrics include retention rate, viral coefficient CAC, and LTV. Additionally, cohort analysis can provide insights into how different groups of customers behave over time and help identify areas for improvement. Example of a company using multiple growth engines. Amazon is an example of a company that successfully leverages multiple engines of growth. It has a high retention rate with its Prime membership program, Sticky Engine, encourages user reviews and recommendations, Viral Engine, and spends heavily on advertising to acquire new customers, Paid Engine. Overcoming growth challenges. Sustainable growth is not without its challenges. Startups must be prepared to adapt to market changes, stay agile and ready to adjust strategies based on market feedback and changes in customer behavior. Manage resources efficiently. Ensure that spending on growth initiatives is sustainable and does not jeopardize the financial health of the business. Scale operations. As the business grows, scaling operations to meet increased demand without compromising on quality is crucial. Strategic planning for growth. Strategic planning for growth involves setting clear goals, defining key performance indicators (KPIs), and creating a roadmap to achieve these goals. This planning should be flexible, allowing for adjustments based on new information and changing conditions. Regularly reviewing progress and refining strategies is essential for maintaining sustainable growth. The role of innovation in sustainable growth. Continuous innovation is vital for sustaining growth. This involves regularly updating and improving the product, exploring new market opportunities, and staying ahead of competitors. Startups should foster a culture of innovation, encouraging team members to propose and test new ideas. Building a culture of growth. For sustainable growth to be effective, startups need to build a culture that values continuous improvement and data-driven decision-making. This means encouraging team members to experiment, learn from failures, and celebrate successes. A growth-oriented culture fosters collaboration, creativity, and resilience, enabling startups to thrive in a competitive market. Chapter 11. Adapt. The need to adapt. In the dynamic and competitive environment of startups, the ability to adapt is crucial. Startups must be prepared to change direction based on validated learning and market conditions. Adapting doesn't mean merely reacting to changes, it means anticipating them and proactively adjusting strategies to remain competitive and relevant. The Lean Startup Methodology and Adaptability. The Lean Startup Methodology is designed to maximize adaptability. Through the build, measure, learn cycle, startups can iterate quickly and adjust their course in response to new data and customer feedback. This continuous continuous iteration allows startups to remain agile and respond effectively to opportunities and challenges. Building a culture of adaptability. For a startup to be truly adaptable, it needs to cultivate a culture that values continuous learning and flexibility. This includes fostering a mindset of experimentation, where failures are seen as opportunities to learn and improve. It also means empowering teams to make data-driven decisions and adapt quickly to changes. Example of adaptability. A notable example of adaptability is Pixar. Known for its successes in animated films, Pixar has faced numerous technical and creative challenges in its projects. The company adopts an iterative approach, using feedback and data to refine its processes and improve its products continually. This adaptability has been key to its sustained success. Tools for adaptability. Several tools and techniques can help startups become more adaptable. Retrospective meetings. These meetings allow teams to reflect on what has worked and what hasn't, and to plan improvements for the future. Root cause analysis. This technique helps identify the underlying causes of problems and develop effective solutions. Empathy maps. These visual tools help understand customers' needs and emotions, facilitating better alignment of products with customer desires. Adapting through pivots. Pivoting is a powerful tool for adaptability. When a hypothesis is proven incorrect, a pivot allows the startup to change direction in a structured and data-driven manner. Pivots can involve changing the target customer segment, product features, or even the entire business model. Example of a successful pivot. Twitter is a well-known example of a successful pivot. Originally conceived as a podcasting platform called Audio, the company pivoted to become the microblogging service we know today, after realizing they could not compete with iTunes. This pivot allowed Twitter to find its niche and grow rapidly. Strategies for promoting adaptability. To promote adaptability, startups should encourage a growth mindset, encourage team members to see challenges as opportunities to learn and improve, implement rapid feedback loops, ensure that customer feedback and market data are quickly incorporated into decision-making processes, promote transparency and open communication, keep all team members informed and align with the startup's vision and objectives. The role of leadership in adaptability. Leadership plays a crucial role in fostering adaptability. Leaders must be willing to make tough decisions based on data and evidence, even if it means abandoning the original vision. Effective leadership involves communicating the reasons for changes to the team, maintaining morale, and ensuring alignment with the new direction. Continuous measurement and adaptation. Adaptability requires continuous measurement and adaptation. Startups should regularly assess their performance against key metrics and make adjustments as needed. This continuous process ensures that the startup remains on track to achieve its goals and can quickly respond to new information. Example of continuous adaptation. Amazon exemplifies continuous adaptation. The company is known for its willingness to experiment and pivot, constantly refining its business model and product offerings. This adaptability has enabled Amazon to remain a leader in e-commerce and expand into new markets successfully. The role of technology in adaptability. Technology plays a significant role in enabling adaptability. Tools such as data analytics platforms, customer relationship management, CRM systems, and project management software provide the insights and flexibility needed to make informed decisions and adjust strategies quickly. Chapter 12. Innovate. The importance of continuous innovation. For a startup to achieve long-term success, innovation must be an ongoing process. It's not enough to launch an innovative product once. Continuous innovation is essential to remain relevant and competitive. The Lean Startup methodology provides a framework for fostering this ongoing innovation through constant experimentation and validated learning. Building a culture of innovation. A culture that encourages innovation is fundamental for any startup. This culture should value experimentation and learning, allowing teams to try new ideas without fear of failure. Innovation should be seen as a continuous, dynamic process rather than a one-time event. Tools and techniques for continuous innovation. Several tools and techniques can help startups stay innovative. Hackathons and innovation days. These events allow teams to explore new ideas and prototypes in a low-pressure environment. They encourage creativity and collaboration, leading to the development of innovative solutions. Innovation labs. Creating dedicated teams to explore new technologies and solutions can maintain a steady flow of innovative ideas. These labs can operate semi-independently from the main business, allowing for more freedom to experiment. Internal incubation programs. Encouraging the creation of pilot projects within the startup can lead to the development of new products and services. These programs support entrepreneurship and allow employees to bring their innovative ideas to life. Example of continuous innovation. Google is a prime example of a company that maintains a culture of continuous innovation. Through initiatives like Google X, its research and development lab, the company explores and develops breakthrough technologies, such as self-driving cars and advanced AI. This commitment to innovation has allowed Google to remain at the forefront of technological advancement, overcoming challenges to innovation. Continuous innovation is not without its challenges. Some of the major obstacles include resistance to change, both at the individual and organizational levels. To overcome these challenges, it is essential to foster a growth mindset, encourage employees to view challenges as opportunities for learning and growth, promote collaboration, facilitate collaboration between different teams and departments to leverage a variety of perspectives and skills, provide adequate resources, ensure that teams have access to the tools, time, and funding needed to explore new ideas. Disruptive innovation. Disruptive innovation refers to innovations that create significant changes in the market, challenging established companies and creating new opportunities. Startups are uniquely positioned to leverage disruptive innovation due to their agility and willingness to take risks. Example of disruptive innovation. Netflix is an excellent example of a startup that utilized disruptive innovation to transform the entertainment industry. By shifting from a DVD rental model to a streaming service, Netflix not only disrupted traditional video rental businesses, but also changed the way people consume media. This shift allowed Netflix to become a dominant player in the market. Measuring and managing innovation. To manage innovation effectively, startups need to measure its impact using specific metrics. These metrics can include the success rate of pilot projects, the time taken to develop new ideas, and the return on investment from innovation initiatives. Key metrics for innovation. Some key metrics that startups should focus on include innovation success rate, the percentage of innovative projects that lead to successful outcomes, time to market, the time it takes to bring a new idea from concept to market, return on innovation investment, the financial return generated from investments in innovation, strategic planning for innovation. Strategic planning for innovation involves setting long-term goals and defining the processes and resources needed to achieve them. This planning should be flexible, allowing for adjustments based on new information and changing conditions. Regularly reviewing progress and refining strategies is essential for maintaining a culture of continuous innovation. Building a culture of experimentation. For innovation to thrive, startups need to build a culture that values experimentation and data-driven decision-making. This means encouraging team members to propose and test new ideas and to learn from the results, regardless of whether they confirm or refute the initial hypotheses. A culture of experimentation fosters creativity, resilience, and agility. The role of leadership in innovation. Leadership plays a critical role in fostering innovation. Leaders must create an environment that supports risk-taking and experimentation. This involves providing the necessary resources, promoting a culture of learning, and ensuring that the team is aligned with the startup's vision and goals. Conclusion. Continuous innovation is essential for the long-term success of a startup. By fostering a culture of experimentation, providing the right tools and resources, and measuring the impact of innovation initiatives, startups can remain competitive and relevant in a rapidly changing market. The Lean Startup methodology offers a robust framework for encouraging ongoing innovation and building a sustainable, successful business.